Chapter 1. The Foundation of Cracks. Tristan Barton had built his life on two principles: loyalty and hard work. At 32, he'd spent the last 8 years married to Savannah Miles, a woman who'd seemed like his perfect match during their whirlwind college romance. Back then, she'd been different, or maybe he'd been too young to see the signs. They'd met at the University of Michigan, where Tristan was studying civil engineering and Savannah was majoring in communications. She'd been drawn to his quiet confidence, his stability. He'd been drawn to her vivacity, her social ease. Tristan came from a working-class family in Detroit. His father, Benjamin Barton, had been a factory foreman who died of a heart attack when Tristan was 23. His mother had passed 2 years before that from cancer. He'd worked 2 jobs through college, graduated with honors, and landed a position at a prestigious engineering firm in Ann Arbor. Savannah came from money. Her father was a successful real estate developer, her mother a former beauty queen who ran charity galas. The Miles family had expectations, and Savannah had inherited their sense of entitlement along with their bank account. The first few years of marriage were manageable. Tristan climbed the ladder at his firm, eventually becoming a senior project manager. Savannah worked in public relations, though her job seemed more like a hobby funded by her family's connections. But somewhere around year 5, things shifted. It started with Holly Farrell. Holly had been Savannah's roommate in college, and when she moved back to Ann Arbor after a failed stint in New York, she and Savannah rekindled their friendship with an intensity that made Tristan uneasy. Holly was everything Tristan disliked: manipulative, entitled, and cruel in the way only people who'd never faced real consequences could be. She worked in her father's law firm, not because she was a good lawyer, but because nepotism ran deep in the Farrell family. Within months, Savannah's entire friend group reformed. Marianne McMahon, a trust fund brat who spent her days at spin classes and wine bars, joined their circle. So did Allison Burke, whose husband was a surgeon and who seemed to compete with Savannah over who could be more dismissive of their spouse. Tristan watched his wife transform. The woman who'd once appreciated his dedication to his work now mocked him for being too serious. The woman who'd admired his humble background now made jokes about his blue-collar roots when her friends were around. He became a prop in Savannah's life, someone to show off when she needed a respectable husband at her father's business dinners, someone to belittle when she wanted to score points with Holly and the others. He tried to address it. 3 months before everything fell apart, they'd been in marriage counseling. The therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Chun, had gently suggested that Savannah seemed to value her friend's opinions over her husband's feelings. "They're just jokes, Tristan," Savannah had said, rolling her eyes. "You're too sensitive. Maybe if you weren't so boring, I'd have more fun things to say about you." Dr. Chun had looked uncomfortable. Tristan had felt something crack inside him that day, but he'd stayed. Because he'd made vows. Because he still remembered the woman he'd fallen in love with. That woman was gone. The breaking point came on a Saturday in late September. Tristan had been working on a major bridge project, pulling 60-hour weeks. He'd asked Savannah for one quiet weekend together. No friends, no parties, just them. She'd agreed, even seemed touched by the request. Then Friday night arrived, and so did Holly, Marianne, and Allison, bottles of wine in hand and plans for a girls' weekend. "You don't mind, do you, Tris?" Savannah had asked, but it wasn't really a question. Her eyes had that challenging glint he'd learned to recognize. "The girls really need me right now." He'd minded. He'd said so. And for the first time in months, he'd pushed back. "We had plans, Savannah. I asked for one weekend." Holly had laughed. "Oh my God, he's actually upset." "Savannah, you didn't tell me your husband was this needy." "He's not usually," Savannah said, and her tone held an apology, not to Tristan, but to her friends, for his behavior. That night, Tristan slept in the guest room. In the morning, he'd found them in the kitchen, nursing hangovers and planning their next outing. "Marianne's cousin's wedding is next Saturday," Holly was saying. "It's at some venue upstate, like 300 miles away. We should totally make it a road trip." "I'm not sure I can get away," Savannah had started to say, but then she'd seen Tristan in the doorway, and something shifted in her expression. "A test?" "Actually, yes. Let's do it." Tristan had said nothing. He'd made coffee, read the newspaper, and gone to his home office to work. But he'd felt it then. The end was coming. One way or another, something had to give. He just didn't know how brutally it would arrive. Chapter 2. The Longest Drive. The following Saturday, Tristan woke to the sound of laughter and suitcases being dragged down the stairs. Savannah had mentioned the wedding, but she'd been vague about the details. He'd assumed she'd be gone for the day, back by evening. "You're coming with us," Savannah announced, appearing in the bedroom doorway. Behind her, Holly smirked. "To the wedding? Why not? Marianne's cousin won't mind. It'll be fun." The way she said fun made it sound like a threat. Tristan had a bad feeling, but he also saw an opportunity. Maybe away from their usual environment, away from the constant performance, they could talk. Really talk. "Sure," he said. The drive was 3 hours of torture. He'd been relegated to the back seat of Savannah's Range Rover while Holly rode shotgun. Marianne and Allison followed in Allison's BMW. The women treated him like he was invisible, talking over him, making inside jokes, occasionally throwing out a comment that made him the punchline. Remember when Savannah actually thought she'd be happy living in some boring suburban house, working a normal job? Holly said at one point, "Thank God we saved you from that fate." Savannah had laughed. "I know, right? Can you imagine?" Tristan stared out the window and said nothing. The landscape rolled by, Michigan giving way to rural Ohio, small towns and farmland. He thought about his father, who'd worked 40 years in the same factory and never complained, who'd treated Tristan's mother with respect and kindness until his last breath. What would Benjamin Barton think of the man his son had become? A doormat. A joke. They arrived at the venue around 2 o'clock, a renovated barn on a sprawling property, decorated with white lights and flowers. The wedding was scheduled for 4, followed by a reception. Marianne's cousin, a woman named Jessica, greeted them warmly and assured Tristan he was welcome despite being a last-minute addition. The ceremony was beautiful. Tristan watched the groom look at his bride with genuine love and felt a hollowness in his chest. When had Savannah last looked at him like that? Had she ever? The reception started at 6. Dinner was served, toasts were made, and an open bar kept the celebration flowing. Tristan nursed a single beer and watched Savannah on the dance floor with her friends, their laughter carrying across the barn. He checked his watch. 8:30. They'd probably leave around 10, get home by 1 in the morning. At 9:15, Savannah approached his table, flushed from dancing. Holly, Marianne, and Allison flanked her, all of them giggling like teenagers. "Tris, we're heading out," Savannah said. "Okay, let me grab my jacket." "No, I mean we're heading out. The girls and I. There's this amazing late-night club about an hour from here, and we want to check it out." Tristan stood slowly. "And me?" Holly burst out laughing. "Oh my God, can you imagine Tristan at a club? He'd just stand in the corner looking uncomfortable. So what am I supposed to do?" Tristan kept his voice level, but something cold was spreading through his chest. "Call an Uber." Allison chimed in, finding this hilarious. Savannah had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "It's not that far, Tris. Just get a ride back home. We'll see you tomorrow." "You drove me 300 miles from home," Tristan said quietly, "to a wedding I wasn't invited to. And now you're abandoning me here." "Abandoning is such a strong word," Holly said, her eyes glittering with malice. "We're just going to have fun. You understand fun, right, Tristan? Or is that too exciting for you?" Marianne was recording on her phone, capturing Tristan's reaction. For content, he realized. For something to laugh about later. Savannah touched his arm, and for a moment, he thought she might relent. "Don't be dramatic. It's just a ride home. You can afford it." "This isn't about the money, Savannah." "Then what's it about?" Her eyes challenged him. "Are you trying to control where I go? Who I spend time with?" It was a trap, and he knew it. If he protested further, he'd be the unreasonable one. The controlling husband. Never mind that they'd driven him there. Never mind that a normal spouse wouldn't even consider this. "Call an Uber," Holly said again, louder this time, and the others burst into fresh laughter. They were making a scene. Other wedding guests were starting to notice. Jessica, the bride, looked concerned. Tristan looked at his wife, really looked at her, and he saw the truth he'd been avoiding for months. She enjoyed this. The humiliation, the power play, the way her friends elevated her by tearing him down. This was who she was now. Maybe who she'd always been underneath. "You're right," he said finally. "I'll call an Uber." Savannah smiled, relieved. "See? That wasn't so hard. I'll text you tomorrow." They left in a flurry of perfume and laughter, their heels clicking across the parking lot. Tristan watched the Range Rover's taillights disappear down the country road. Jessica approached him. Are you okay? I'm so sorry. I don't know what Marion was thinking, letting them. It's fine, Tristan said. Not your fault. Congratulations on your wedding. He walked to the edge of the property, away from the reception noise, and pulled out his phone. The Uber app estimated a ride back to Ann Arbor would cost $470 and take 4 to 5 hours, assuming he could even find a driver willing to make the trip. He could call a friend. But what would he say? That his wife had abandoned him? That he'd been such a pushover that he'd let it get this far? Tristan stood there in the cooling September evening, fireflies beginning to blink in the darkness, and felt something shift inside him. Not break, shift. Like tectonic plates rearranging, creating new topography. What was he going home to? A wife who didn't respect him. A marriage that was already dead. Friends who were really Savannah's friends, who'd take her side. A house that had never truly felt like his, filled with furniture Savannah's mother had chosen. He had his wallet, his phone, the clothes on his back. And he had something else, something that had been buried under years of compromise and conflict avoidance. Clarity. Tristan opened his banking app. The checking account he shared with Savannah had $42,000, his project bonuses. He transferred $30,000 to an old savings account she didn't have access to, one he'd opened years ago and forgotten about. Then he opened his investment portfolio, $350,000, built steadily from his salary while Savannah spent her family money. He initiated a transfer to the old savings account. It would take 3 business days to complete. He deleted the Uber app, deleted the navigation home, deleted his social media accounts, not that he'd used them much anyway. Then he texted Savannah, "I hope you have fun tonight. Don't wait up." He powered off his phone. The wedding was winding down. Tristan found Jessica's new husband, a guy named Mike who seemed genuinely decent. "Hey, man, weird question. Is there a hotel nearby? I think I'm going to stay the night. Let my wife have her fun." Mike looked uncomfortable, but directed him to a Holiday Inn about 15 miles away. "Do you need a ride?" "I'll manage. Thanks." Tristan walked. It took him 3 hours, but he'd always been good at walking. His father used to say that sometimes you needed to walk to think clearly. By the time he reached the hotel, he'd made his decision. He checked in under his name, paid cash for 3 nights. In the morning, he'd figure out his next move. But he already knew one thing. He wasn't going back. Not today. Not tomorrow. Maybe not ever. Chapter 3. The Vanishing. The next morning, Tristan woke to 17 missed calls and 34 text messages. He'd powered his phone on briefly to check the time and had been immediately bombarded. The messages started around 11 p.m. the previous night. "Savannah. Hey, where are you? Did you get home okay? Savannah. Tris? Savannah. This isn't funny. Text me back." Then, around 2 a.m., "Savannah. I swear to God if you're trying to make me feel guilty, this is so manipulative, Holly." Somehow she'd texted his number. "Your husband is being a child. Tell him to grow up." By 6 a.m. "Savannah. Tristan, I'm actually worried now. Call me." "Savannah. Did something happen? Are you okay? I'm sorry about last night." He read them all without responding. Then he powered the phone off again. The Holiday Inn had a small business center. Tristan spent Sunday morning there, making plans. He'd built bridges for 8 years. Structural engineering required precision, foresight, understanding load-bearing capacities and stress points. Planning a life wasn't so different. First, he needed cash and mobility. He withdrew the daily maximum from an ATM, $1,500. He'd need to be strategic about leaving no trail. Second, he needed a destination. Somewhere he could disappear, at least temporarily. Third, he needed to cover his tracks. He thought about going west, California, maybe, or Oregon. But that felt too obvious. Instead, he thought about a project he'd worked on 2 years ago in Asheville, North Carolina. Mountain town, good economy, far enough from Michigan to be a different world. The project manager, a guy named Wade Lawson, had been impressed with Tristan's work and had mentioned his firm was always looking for good engineers. Tristan used the business center computer to send Wade an email from a new Gmail account. "Wade, this is Tristan Barton. We worked together on the Ridge Valley Bridge project. I'm looking to relocate and wondered if your firm might have any openings. Would appreciate the chance to talk." He sent similar emails to 3 other contacts in different cities, covering his bases. Then he wiped the browser history and left. At a nearby used car dealership, he paid cash for a 12-year-old Honda Civic. The salesman, a weathered man named Earl, asked no questions when Tristan said he preferred to keep things simple, no financing. $2,800 changed hands, and Tristan had transportation. He drove to a Walmart, bought a burner phone, new clothes, toiletries, and a duffel bag. He was creating a new baseline, shedding his old life piece by piece. By Monday morning, his real phone showed 83 calls and over 100 messages. Savannah had clearly panicked. The messages had evolved from angry to worried to desperate. Savannah, please just let me know you're alive. I'm calling hospitals. Savannah, Tristan, I'm so sorry. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. Please come home. Savannah, my parents are asking about you. I don't know what to tell them. Where are you? He responded once. I'm safe. I need time to think. Don't look for me. Then he removed the SIM card, destroyed it, and threw the phone in a dumpster behind the Walmart. For the next 3 weeks, Tristan drove. He stayed in cheap motels, paid cash, used different names. He wasn't hiding, exactly. He just wasn't ready to be found. Wade Lawson had responded to his email within 2 days. Tristan, good to hear from you. We'd love to talk. Can you come in for an interview? Tristan drove to Asheville. The city was beautiful, nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains, full of art galleries and breweries, and people who seemed genuinely happy. The interview went well. Wade remembered his work ethic, his skill. They offered him a position as a project engineer, a slight step down from his Ann Arbor role, but the pay was decent, and the firm had a good reputation. Can you start in 2 weeks? Wade asked. I can start tomorrow, Tristan said. He found an apartment, a modest one-bedroom in a converted warehouse downtown. He furnished it simply. IKEA furniture, nothing fancy. He opened a new bank account at a local credit union, slowly transferring funds from his hidden savings. The investment account transfer had completed successfully. He had capital, he had work, and he had something he hadn't felt in years: peace. The nightmares took longer to fade. He'd wake in the middle of the night, heart pounding, thinking about the wedding venue, about Holly's laughter, about Savannah's face as she'd left him there. But gradually, those images lost their power. He threw himself into work. The firm appreciated his dedication. Wade became not just a boss, but a friend. They'd grab beers after work, talk about projects and sports, and nothing heavy. Tristan told him he'd left a bad marriage, and Wade nodded understanding, not pressing for details. My brother went through something similar, Wade said. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Tristan joined a gym, started hiking the mountain trails on weekends, made casual friends with neighbors, people who knew him only as Tristan, the quiet engineer who'd moved from up north. Nobody asked hard questions. Nobody knew about Savannah or the life he'd left behind. Months passed. Fall turned to winter. Tristan celebrated a quiet Christmas alone, hiking to a mountain peak and watching the sun set over the Appalachians. He felt more himself than he had in years. It was in late January when he finally allowed himself to think about what he'd done. He'd vanished, ghosted his entire life. It was dramatic, maybe even cruel. But what choice had he been left with? A relationship that had become toxic? Friends who weren't really friends? The ghost of a marriage where he'd been nothing but a punchline? He hadn't contacted his in-laws, hadn't told anyone where he'd gone. By now, Savannah would have told some version of the story to their mutual acquaintances. He wondered what she'd said. That he'd abandoned her? That he'd had some kind of breakdown? He didn't care enough to find out. In February, he got a promotion at work. Wade called him into his office with a grin. You've been killing it, Barton. How'd you like to lead the Henderson Bridge restoration? It's a big project, great for your portfolio. Tristan accepted. The Henderson Bridge was a historic structure, and restoring it would require innovation and precision. It was exactly the kind of challenge he'd been missing. That night, he treated himself to dinner at a nice restaurant downtown. The waitress, a woman about his age with kind eyes and an easy smile, asked if he was celebrating. New project at work, he said. Congratulations. First time here. Yeah, just moved to Asheville a few months ago. Welcome, she said warmly. I think you'll love it here. Her name was Lila Maxwell, and she asked if he'd like to hear about the specials. Tristan found himself smiling. Really smiling, not the tight, defensive smile he'd worn for years in Ann Arbor. I'd like that, he said. He didn't ask for her number. Wasn't ready for that yet. But it was a moment of possibility, a reminder that life could be more than just survival. By spring, Tristan had fully integrated into Asheville. He'd let his hair grow slightly longer, grown a beard, He looked different enough that a casual acquaintance from Michigan might not immediately recognize him. But more than his appearance, something fundamental had changed. He carried himself differently, shoulders back, head up. The weight of constant criticism and mockery had lifted. He didn't think about Savannah every day anymore. When he did, it was with detachment, like remembering a particularly unpleasant job he'd once had. The anger had faded, replaced by something calmer, acceptance. Their marriage had been a mistake, but it had also taught him what he wouldn't tolerate again, what he deserved. He was 33 years old, finally learning how to be himself. And then, in late April, almost exactly 5 years after he'd walked away from that wedding venue, his past caught up with him. Chapter 4. The New Foundation. 5 years had transformed Tristan Barton into someone his former wife wouldn't recognize. At 37, he'd become the lead structural engineer at Lawson & Associates, overseeing major projects across the Southeast. The Henderson Bridge restoration had been completed ahead of schedule and under budget, earning him regional recognition. He'd been featured in Engineering News Record, his beard-covered face smiling from the glossy pages. He'd also fallen in love. Lila Maxwell, the waitress who'd welcomed him that first night, had become his girlfriend after 6 months of careful dating. She was everything Savannah hadn't been. Genuine, kind, interested in his work not for status, but because she genuinely found it fascinating. She'd grown up in Asheville, daughter of a schoolteacher and a carpenter. She understood work, understood value, understood that relationships required effort and respect. They'd moved in together a year ago, buying a small house on the outskirts of town with a view of the mountains. Lila still worked at the restaurant, but she was also pursuing a degree in environmental science online. They hiked together, cooked together, talked about everything. "You never really talk about Michigan," she'd said once, early in their relationship. "Not much to say. I worked a lot, wasn't happy. Then I came here." She'd accepted that, sensing the boundaries. Tristan appreciated her for not pushing. But he'd told her the broad strokes. There had been a wife, a marriage that had imploded, and he'd chosen to start over. He'd never mentioned the wedding venue, the abandonment, the specific cruelties. Those were memories he'd buried deep. Wade Lawson had become his closest friend. They went fishing together, watched basketball games, traded books. Wade knew more of the story, how Savannah had belittled him, how her friends had turned cruelty into sport. Wade's support had been quiet but steadfast. "You did the right thing, leaving," Wade had told him once. "Some people drain you dry, and you don't even realize it until you're empty." Tristan had rebuilt himself from empty. He had hobbies now: woodworking, mountain biking, playing guitar badly but enjoyably. He volunteered with Habitat for Humanity on weekends, using his engineering skills to help build homes. He'd made friends organically, people who liked him for who he was, not for how he could serve them. The investment portfolio he'd protected had grown. Combined with his salary, he was financially stable in a way he'd never been during his marriage. Savannah had always spent freely, assuming money would always be there. Tristan had learned from his father's frugality, and it had paid off. He thought about his past life rarely. Occasionally, he'd wonder what had happened to Savannah. Had she remarried? Was she still friends with Holly and the others? Did she ever think about him? He didn't look them up online. It would be like picking at a healed wound, pointless and potentially painful. He'd closed that chapter. Or so he thought. It was a Thursday afternoon in late April when his carefully constructed piece shattered. Tristan was on site at the new Riverside Community Center, inspecting the foundation work, when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him accept the call. "Tristan Barton?" A woman's voice, professional but uncertain. "Speaking. Mr. Barton, this is Alba Rasmussen. I'm a private investigator, and I've been hired to locate you. I'm calling to inform you that Savannah Miles has been trying to reach you for quite some time." The name hit him like a physical blow. Savannah. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. "Mr. Barton? Are you there? How did you find me?" His voice came out steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Property records, employment history. It took a while, but I'm thorough. Ms. Miles has asked me to relay a message. She needs to speak with you urgently. She's left numerous voicemails on your old number, and my old number hasn't existed in 5 years. A pause. She's been calling it anyway. 127 voicemails, to be precise. Mr. Barton, I understand this may be complicated, but she seems genuinely distressed. There's apparently a legal matter that requires your attention. I'm not interested. I'm obligated to tell you that if you don't respond, she's prepared to come to Asheville herself. She has your work address. Tristan's jaw clenched. What does she want? She wouldn't tell me the details. Only that it's urgent and concerns both of you. She's asking for one meeting. Tell her no. Mr. Barton. He hung up. His hands were shaking. 5 years. 5 years of peace, of rebuilding, of becoming someone he could respect. And with one phone call, the past had come crashing back. He called Wade, who answered on the second ring. You okay? You sound rattled. Can we meet? I need to talk. They met at their usual bar, a quiet place downtown where the bartender knew their orders. Tristan explained about the investigator, about Savannah resurfacing. Wade listened carefully, then asked, Did you ever actually divorce her? The question hit Tristan like ice water. In his desperate escape 5 years ago, he'd changed banks, changed phones, changed cities. But he'd never filed for divorce. He'd simply disappeared. No, he said quietly. So legally, you're still married. I guess so. Wade grimaced. That could be complicated. If she's saying there's a legal matter, it might be about the marriage status. Or finances. Did you have shared assets? Not much. The house was in her name, her parents' gift. The cars were hers. I took my savings and investments. Tristan paused. She doesn't know about those. Different bank, different brokerage. Smart. But man, you need to deal with this. You can't just hope she goes away again. I built a life here, Wade. A good life. She doesn't get to waltz back in and I'm not saying give her what she wants. I'm saying face it head on. Find out what she needs, handle it, and shut the door properly this time. Legal divorce, sign papers, done. Tristan knew Wade was right, but the thought of seeing Savannah again made him feel physically ill. Not because he still loved her, that had died 5 years ago at a barn wedding venue in Ohio, but because she represented everything he'd fought to escape. He went home to Lila, who was studying at the kitchen table, textbooks spread around her laptop. Hey, she said, looking up with a smile that faded when she saw his face. What happened? He told her everything. About the wedding venue, about being abandoned, about walking away and never looking back, about Savannah hiring an investigator, about the voicemails. Lila listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Do you want to see her? She asked finally. God, no. But you're still legally married. Apparently. She reached across the table and took his hand. Then let's fix that. Get a lawyer, file for divorce, make it official. But Tristan, her eyes held his. You need to face this. Not for her. For you. To finally close that door properly. What if she tries to cause trouble? Tries to claim assets, or... Then we deal with it. Together. You're not the same person you were 5 years ago. You're not going to let her push you around. She was right. He wasn't that person anymore. Okay, he said. I'll call her back. But on my terms. The next morning, Tristan called Alba Rasmussen back. Tell Savannah I'll meet with her. Once. In a public place, here in Asheville. She can explain what she wants, and then we're going to make our divorce official. I'll relay the message, Alba said, and he could hear relief in her voice. Thank you, Mr. Barton. He hung up and immediately called a divorce attorney, a sharp woman named Madeline Henry who'd been recommended by Wade. Tell me everything, Madeline said when they met that afternoon. Tristan laid it out. The marriage, the deterioration, the wedding venue abandonment, his disappearance. Madeline took notes, her expression carefully neutral. First things first, she said when he finished. In North Carolina, you can file for absolute divorce based on 1 year's separation. You've been separated for 5 years, so that's not an issue. However, since you left without filing, this could get complicated if she contests anything. What could she contest? Assets, alimony, even try to claim you abandoned the marriage improperly. But given what you've told me about the circumstances and the fact that you've built a separate life here, we have a strong case. Do you have any documentation of her behavior? Texts, emails, witnesses. I destroyed my phone 5 years ago. Started completely fresh. Madeline grimaced. That's unfortunate. But we'll work with what we have. When you meet with her, record the conversation if she'll consent. Get everything in writing. And Tristan, don't let her manipulate you. Whatever guilt or anger she tries to provoke, stay calm. This is a business transaction now. 3 days later, Tristan received a text from an unknown number. This is Savannah. I'm in Asheville. Can we meet tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Coffee shop. His hands were steady as he typed back. Biscuit Head, downtown. 2 o'clock. Come alone. She responded immediately. Okay. Thank you. That night, Tristan barely slept. Lila held him, offering silent support. In the morning, he went to work but couldn't concentrate. Wade sent him home early. Go prepare, Wade said. Remember, you're in control here. At 1:30, Tristan arrived at Biscuit Head, a popular brunch spot with excellent coffee and plenty of witnesses. He chose a table by the window, ordered coffee, and waited. At precisely 2 o'clock, Savannah Miles walked through the door. Chapter 5, The Reckoning. She looked different. Older, obviously, 5 years had passed, but there was something else. Her hair was still blonde, still styled, but there were dark circles under her eyes poorly concealed by makeup. She'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way. The confident, almost aggressive posture he remembered was gone, replaced by something hunched, uncertain. She saw him and froze for a moment before walking to his table. Tristan, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Savannah, sit. She did, folding her hands on the table. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring, he noticed. Up close, she looked exhausted. Thank you for meeting me, she said. I wasn't sure you would. Let's skip the pleasantries. What do you want? She flinched. I wanted to apologize. For everything. For that night at the wedding, for how I treated you for. Savannah, what do you want? His tone was flat, emotionless. She'd hear no warmth there, no opening for manipulation. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I need you to listen to something. Please. Before he could protest, she played a voicemail. Her own voice, younger, desperate. Tristan, please call me back. I'm so sorry. I don't know where you are. Please just let me know you're okay. Another one. It's been 3 months. Your job says you quit. Your phone doesn't work. Where are you? Another. I talked to a lawyer. They said you might be dead, and I'd need to wait 7 years for a declaration. I don't want that. I just want to know you're alive. She cycled through several more, her voice evolving from desperate to angry to broken. The timestamps spanned 5 years. I called every week, she said quietly. Sometimes more. 127 times. Your investigator mentioned that. I had to hire 3 different ones. The first 2 couldn't find you. Alba was the third. She looked up at him. You covered your tracks well. I left. That's not the same as disappearing. I just didn't want to be found. By you. She absorbed that like a blow. I deserve that. You deserve worse. Silence stretched between them. The coffee shop bustled around them, oblivious to the drama at their corner table. Why now? Tristan asked. Why, after 5 years, hire an investigator? Why not just move on? I tried. Her voice cracked. I really tried. But things fell apart. Everything fell apart. Despite himself, Tristan felt a flicker of curiosity. Explain. Savannah took a shaky breath. After you left, I was angry at first. Told everyone you'd abandoned me. Had some kind of breakdown. My parents were furious with you. My friends, Holly and the others. They supported me. Said you'd always been weak. That I was better off. I'm sure they did. But then, I don't know. Weeks passed, and you didn't come crawling back. That's what Holly said would happen. That you'd realize you couldn't survive without me and come back begging. But you didn't. And I started thinking about that night. She looked down at her hands. I hired the first investigator 3 months after you left. Not because I wanted you back yet. I was still angry. But because I needed to know you were okay. That you hadn't. I kept having nightmares that you'd done something to yourself. I'm not that weak. I know that now. But then I wasn't sure. The investigator found your trail to the Holiday Inn, then nothing. You'd vanished. That's when I started to realize how badly I'd messed up. Tristan said nothing, waiting. About 6 months after you left, things with Holly started to sour. She was divorcing her husband. Yes, she'd gotten married the year before you left, and she expected me to drop everything for her. When I couldn't always be available, she got nasty. Said I was being a bad friend, that I'd become boring. Ironic. I told her to back off. She didn't like that. Started turning Marianne and Allison against me. Suddenly, I wasn't invited to things. The group chat went silent. I'd been iced out. Tristan felt no sympathy. And you came running back to me? No. I tried to make new friends. Went to therapy. Started actually working at my PR job instead of treating it like a hobby. I tried to figure out who I was without the Mean Girls Club. She smiled bitterly. Turns out, I didn't know. This is all very touching, but it's not explaining why you hunted me down. My father died 18 months ago. Her voice dropped. Heart attack. Just like your dad. That caught him off guard. Savannah's father, Richard Miles, had been a force of nature. Impossible to imagine him simply gone. I'm sorry for your loss. He left the business to my brother, not me. Said I'd never taken anything seriously, that I'd coasted my whole life. Left me a trust fund with conditions. I had to be employed, had to show I was contributing to society, or I'd lose it. He was trying to teach me a lesson, even from the grave. Sounds like he knew you well. She nodded. The company started struggling. My brother isn't the businessman my father was. 6 months ago, it went bankrupt. My mother lost most of her savings. Suddenly, I wasn't the rich girl anymore. I was just ordinary. Welcome to the real world. I realized something, she continued, as if he hadn't spoken. All those years with you, I had something real. A man who worked hard, who loved me even when I didn't deserve it, who was building something solid. And I threw it away because Holly and her crowd made me feel like I was too good for ordinary life. She looked up, and there were tears in her eyes. I don't expect forgiveness, Tristan. I don't even deserve your time. But I needed to tell you that I'm sorry. That you were right to leave. That I've spent 5 years realizing what I lost. Tristan studied her. She seemed genuine. But he'd learned not to trust appearances. Is this about money? He asked bluntly. Did you find out I'm doing well and decide to come back? No. I don't want your money. I have the trust fund still. It's enough to live on if I'm careful, which I'm learning to be. I needed to apologize. Face to face. And to ask if there's any way you could forgive me. Forgive you. Not take me back, she said quickly. I'm not delusional. I know what I destroyed. But I've carried this guilt for 5 years, and it's eating me alive. I just needed to say I'm sorry and hear whether you could ever forgive me. For my own peace of mind. Tristan sat back. This was the moment he'd fantasized about for years after leaving. Savannah realizing her mistake, begging for forgiveness. But now that it was happening, he felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication. Just exhaustion. I don't forgive you, he said finally. What you did, what you and your friends did, was cruel. Deliberately so. You enjoyed humiliating me. You made me feel worthless. She was crying now, silently. But, he continued, I don't hate you anymore either. You did me a favor, in a way. Forced me to find my spine and walk away. I built a good life here. Better than what I had. I heard you're engaged, she said softly. Alba told me. Is she good to you? She's everything you weren't. Savannah nodded, accepting that. Good. You deserve that. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Tristan pulled out a business card, Madeline Henry's. This is my divorce attorney. Contact her. We're going to make our divorce official. I want it done cleanly, no contests, no drama. You keep whatever's yours, I keep what's mine. We sign papers and never see each other again. She took the card. Okay, thank you. Don't thank me. This isn't kindness. It's closure. She stood to leave, then hesitated. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. For leaving. For building something better. You always were stronger than I gave you credit for. Goodbye, Savannah. She walked out of the coffee shop, and Tristan watched her go. Part of him had expected to feel victorious, seeing her brought low. Instead, he just felt tired. His phone buzzed. Lila, how did it go? She apologized. We're moving forward with the divorce. Coming home soon. I love you. I love you too. He paid for his untouched coffee and left. The afternoon sun was bright, the mountains visible in the distance. His truck was parked a block away. As he walked, he felt lighter somehow. It wasn't until he was halfway home that the anger finally hit him. Not at Savannah's apology, that had been genuine enough, but at the fact that she'd gotten closure while he'd been living with 5 years of unresolved trauma. She'd said her piece, could now move on with her conscience clear. What about him? What about the nights he'd woken up feeling humiliated all over again? What about the ways her cruelty had shaped him, made him hesitant to trust, to be vulnerable? She'd destroyed him and then shown up wanting forgiveness so she could feel better. By the time he pulled into his driveway, Tristan's jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. Lila met him at the door, took one look at his face, and said, What happened? He told her. Everything. Savannah's apology, her fall from grace, her request for forgiveness. And you said? That I didn't forgive her. That we'd divorce and never see each other again. But, he looked at her. But it's not enough. She gets to apologize and move on, and I'm just supposed to accept it? After what she did. What do you want to do? I don't know. Something. She needs to understand, really understand, what she did. Not just say sorry and walk away feeling absolved. Lila was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You're not the same person she left at that wedding. You're stronger now. Smarter. If you want real closure, maybe you need to make sure she faces real consequences." What do you mean? I mean, she said her life fell apart. But did it really? She still has money. She's still living comfortably. She just doesn't have the same social status. That's not consequences. That's just inconvenience. Tristan looked at his girlfriend, this woman who'd helped him heal, who'd loved him without conditions. And he saw understanding in her eyes. "What would you do?" he asked. Lila smiled, and it wasn't entirely kind. "I'd remind her exactly what she destroyed. And I'd make sure she paid for it in ways that actually mattered." That's vengeful? Maybe. But sometimes people need to face real consequences before they can actually change. And Tristan, you deserve justice, not just an apology. He thought about it. About the wedding venue. About Holly's laughter. About 5 years of rebuilding himself from nothing. "Okay," he said. "But if we're doing this, we're doing it right. No half measures." "I wouldn't expect anything less," Lila said. "You're an engineer. You build things to last. Including revenge." Chapter 6. The Blueprint. Over the next 2 weeks, Tristan did what he did best. He planned. But this wasn't a bridge or a building. This was something far more personal. He started by gathering information. Alba Rasmussen, the private investigator, had been thorough in finding him. Tristan reached out to her with a proposal. "I need information about my soon-to-be ex-wife," he said when they met at a neutral coffee shop in Asheville. "And about her friends, Holly Farrell, Marianne McMahon, and Allison Burke. I want to know what they're doing now, where they work, their current situations." Alba raised an eyebrow. "That's an interesting request from someone who just had a reconciliation meeting with his wife." It wasn't a reconciliation. It was an apology. One I've decided isn't sufficient. "Mr. Barton, I'm not comfortable facilitating. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. Just basic information. Public records, social media, professional backgrounds. The same kind of research you did to find me." Alba considered this. "And you'll pay my full rate? Double your full rate. I want this done thoroughly and quickly." She agreed. 3 days later, he had a comprehensive dossier. The information was illuminating. Savannah Miles Barton, she'd kept his name, apparently living in Ann Arbor, working as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized firm. Trust fund providing supplemental income of approximately $45,000 annually. No major assets. No current relationship. Holly Farrell, divorced, working at her father's law firm still, but with reduced responsibilities after a series of professional missteps. 2 DUIs on her record. Reputation in legal circles was poor, known for being lazy and entitled. Marianne McMahon, married to her second husband, a man named Eric Bass, living off his income as a financial advisor, had been involved in a minor scandal involving a charity fundraiser where funds went missing, though she hadn't been charged. Allison Burke, divorced from her surgeon husband after he discovered she'd been having an affair, lost most of her settlement in a bad investment scheme, currently working retail to make ends meet. The Mean Girls Club had imploded, it seemed. Karma had done some work on its own. But Tristan wanted more than passive karma. He shared the information with Wade and Lila over dinner at his house. "So they're all struggling in their own ways," Wade said, studying the documents. "What's your angle?" "I don't know yet," Tristan admitted. "But there's something here. Holly's still at her father's firm despite being a liability. Marianne's living off her husband's income, but has a history of financial impropriety. Allison's barely scraping by. And Savannah?" Lila asked. "Savannah's the interesting one. She actually seems to be trying to turn her life around. Real job, living within her means." "That's unexpected. Does that change what you want to do?" Wade asked. Tristan thought about the wedding venue. About being abandoned. About 5 years of rebuilding from nothing. "No," he said. "She participated in my humiliation. She doesn't get a pass just because she apologized." Lila leaned forward. "What if we approach this strategically? Not just punishing them, but exposing them. Making sure everyone knows what they really are." "I like where this is going," Wade said. "What are you thinking? Holly's the ringleader, right? The one who orchestrated most of the cruelty. And she's protected by her father's position. What if that protection went away? How? Tristan asked. Lila smiled. You're an engineer. You understand structural weaknesses. Every organization has them. We find the Farrell firm's weakness and exploit it. Over the next week, Tristan dug deeper. The Farrell law firm was a mid-sized practice specializing in family law and estate planning. Holly's father, Thomas Farrell, had built it over 30 years. But there were cracks. Using his professional network, Tristan discovered that the firm had been under investigation by the State Bar Association 2 years ago for mishandling client funds, specifically, estate funds that had been temporarily borrowed for operational expenses. Thomas Farrell had resolved it quietly, but the taint remained, and Holly had been involved. Her name appeared in the internal investigation documents as having authorized several of the questionable transfers. This is good, Madeline Henry said when Tristan brought the information to her. As his divorce attorney, she was technically neutral, but she'd heard enough about his marriage to be sympathetic. But what do you plan to do with it? I'm not sure yet. I don't want to do anything illegal. Then let me be clear. If you're considering reporting past misconduct, that's legal. If you're considering fabricating evidence or blackmail, that's not. I don't need to fabricate anything. The truth is damaging enough. What Tristan needed was leverage. A way to ensure that when he exposed Holly, it would stick. He couldn't just send an anonymous tip to the Bar Association. They'd likely dismiss it as old news. The answer came from an unexpected source, Ronaldo Cabrera. Ronaldo was a lawyer Tristan had met through a professional conference years ago. They'd stayed in loose touch. When Tristan reached out asking about estate law and Bar Association procedures, Ronaldo was happy to help. If you have evidence of ongoing misconduct, the bar takes it seriously, Ronaldo explained over the phone. Past issues they've resolved? Less so. But if you can show a pattern or new violations, that's different. How would someone prove ongoing misconduct? Witness testimony, documents, client complaints. Why? You looking to report someone? Maybe. Someone who hurt people I care about and got away with it. Ronaldo was quiet for a moment. Be careful, Tristan. Revenge can backfire. But if you're doing this for the right reasons, make sure you have ironclad evidence. Tristan thanked him and hung up. Then he made a decision. He would give Holly, Marianne, and Allison a chance to face their own consequences. And if they didn't take it, he'd make sure the consequences found them anyway. His plan had 3 phases. Phase 1. Reach out to each of them individually, recording conversations where he'd confront them about their past behavior. If they showed genuine remorse, he'd consider backing off. If they didn't, he'd move to Phase 2. Phase 2. Expose their current situations to their peers and communities. Not through gossip, but through strategic information sharing with people who needed to know, bar associations, employers, social circles. Phase 3. Legal action where applicable. Holly's professional misconduct, Marianne's charity fund issues, anything that could stick. This is elaborate, Wade said when Tristan laid it out. You sure you want to go this far? They destroyed me for fun, Tristan said. Then moved on without a second thought. They need to understand that actions have consequences. And Savannah? Savannah's different. She apologized. She's trying. I'll let the divorce be her consequence. But the others? They haven't faced anything. Lila squeezed his hand. I'm with you. But promise me something. What? Promise me you'll know when to stop. Revenge can consume you if you let it. We get justice, but we don't lose ourselves in the process. Tristan kissed her forehead. I promise. This is about closure, not obsession. The next day, he started making calls. Chapter 7. The Confrontation. Tristan started with Holly Farrell. Finding her wasn't difficult. She was still at her father's law firm, still living in Ann Arbor. He called her office directly. Farrell Law, how may I direct your call? The receptionist sounded young, probably fresh out of school. Holly Farrell, please. Tell her it's Tristan Barton calling. A pause. One moment. Elevator music played. Tristan imagined Holly's face when she heard his name. Would she remember him? Would she care? Tristan. Her voice came on, uncertain. Is this really you? Hello, Holly. Oh my God. Wow. Savannah said she found you. That you're living in North Carolina? Asheville. I need to talk to you about something. About what? Her tone shifted, becoming guarded. About 5 years ago. The wedding. What you and the others did. Silence. Then, carefully. Tristan, that was a long time ago. I think we were all different people then. Were you? Or did you just face consequences that forced you to pretend to change? I don't know what you mean. Your 2 DUIs. Your professional issues. The fact that your father had to clean up your mess at the firm. Should I continue? Her voice went cold. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. You and your friends treated me like garbage. You laughed while abandoning me 300 miles from home. You encouraged Savannah to abuse me. And you never faced any consequences. That's not. We were just having fun. It was a joke. A joke. Tristan's voice was deadly calm. Leaving someone stranded is a joke. You could have called someone. You're being dramatic. You're right. I could have crawled back. That's what you expected, wasn't it? For me to come back defeated, prove that Savannah was too good for me. But I didn't. I left. I built something better. And now I'm back to make sure you understand exactly what kind of person you are. I don't have to listen to this. You will. Because I have evidence of your professional misconduct. The estate fund transfers, the bar association investigation. I have documents, Holly. And I'm prepared to share them with anyone who'll listen. Those were cleared. My father handled it. Your father covered it up. There's a difference. And I've spoken with several clients of your firm who weren't happy with how their cases were handled, specifically, cases you worked on. They're willing to file complaints. This was a bluff, mostly. Tristan had found some negative reviews online, but he hadn't actually contacted any former clients. Yet, Holly's breathing was audible on the line. What do you want? I want you to admit what you did. On record. I want you to apologize, really apologize, not the fake PR apology you're probably considering. And I want you to understand that your actions have consequences. And if I don't, then I make sure everyone in the legal community knows exactly who Holly Farrell really is. Your father's reputation might protect you now, but it won't last forever. Eventually, you'll have to stand on your own merits. And we both know you don't have any. You're an asshole. I'm a man who was abused and is finally standing up for himself. There's a difference. He hung up. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. From adrenaline. That had felt good. Next was Marianne McMahon-Base. He found her through social media. She was still active on Instagram, posting carefully curated photos of her life with Eric Bass. The pictures showed a woman trying very hard to look happy and successful. The comments were sparse, suggesting her following had dwindled. Tristan sent her a direct message. Marianne, this is Tristan Barton, Savannah's ex-husband. We need to talk about what happened 5 years ago. Please call me. He included his number. She called within an hour. Tristan? I heard you'd resurfaced. How are you? Her tone was overly friendly, fake. He remembered that voice, the one she'd use when she wanted something. Cut the act, Marianne. You know why I'm calling. The wedding thing? God, that was so long ago. We were younger, stupider. I barely even remember it. You recorded me on your phone. For laughs. I remember that part vividly. A pause. Look, if you're looking for an apology, I'm looking for accountability. You and Holly and Allison bullied me for years through Savannah. You made my life hell. And then you left me stranded and thought it was hilarious. We didn't think you'd actually. We figured you'd find a way home. It wasn't that serious. Not that serious. Tristan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Do you know what I did after you all left? Got an Uber? I walked 15 miles to a hotel. Then I disappeared from my entire life, because going back to you people felt worse than starting over with nothing. Does that sound not that serious to you? She was quiet. Then, I'm sorry you felt that way. You're sorry I felt that way. Not sorry for what you did. Just sorry I reacted. I don't know what you want me to say. It was years ago. We were all different people. Were you? Because I heard about the charity fundraiser. The missing money. Sharp intake of breath. That was investigated. I wasn't charged with anything. Because your husband's family paid back what went missing. That's not the same as being innocent. How do you? Who have you been talking to? I've been thorough. Here's what's going to happen, Marianne. You're going to write a detailed apology. Not to me. I don't want it. To anyone you've ever hurt or used. And you're going to really think about the kind of person you've been. Or what? Or I make sure everyone in your social circle knows about the charity money. Your husband's colleagues, your country club friends, everyone. I'll make sure your carefully constructed image crumbles. That's blackmail. No, it's consequences. Something you've avoided your whole life. He hung up. 2 down. 1 to go. Allison Burke was harder to reach. She'd deleted most of her social media and was working at a Target in Dearborn, outside Detroit. Tristan drove there himself, a 10-hour drive, but he wanted to see her face. He waited in the parking lot until her shift ended, then approached her as she walked to her car. Allison. She turned, confused, then recognition dawned. Tristan? Oh my God. I heard, Savannah said. We need to talk. I'm really tired, and I have to get home too. This won't take long. 5 years ago, you and your friends abandoned me at a wedding venue. Do you remember that? Her face went pale. That was Holly's idea. We were drunk, and you participated. You laughed. You thought it was funny. I'm sorry. I really am. Things were different then. I was different. Tristan studied her. Unlike Holly and Marianne, Allison actually seemed genuinely remorseful. Her life had clearly fallen apart. The contrast between then and now was stark. Tell me what happened to you, he said. She looked surprised by the question. Why? Because I want to know if you've actually changed or if you're just sorry you got caught. They sat in her car, and she told him. The affair, the divorce, the bad investments, the current struggle to make ends meet. She cried as she spoke, and the tears seemed real. I was awful back then, she said. I thought I was better than everyone. That my husband's success made me special. When he left, I had to face what I really was. Just a mean, shallow person who'd never built anything of my own. And now I'm trying to be better. I'm back in school online, getting a degree in social work. I want to help people, not hurt them. It's probably too little, too late, but I'm trying. Tristan believed her. Unlike the others, Allison had been the follower, not the leader. She'd gone along with the cruelty but hadn't instigated it. Okay, he said finally. I believe you, but you still owe amends. I'll do anything. Write down everything you remember from that night. Everything that led up to it, everything that happened after. Send it to me. And then reach out to Savannah and tell her that what you all did was wrong. Not because I'm making you, but because it's the right thing to do. I will. I promise. He left her there and drove back to Asheville, his mind churning. Allison's genuine remorse had complicated things. She was trying to change, to be better. Could he really punish someone who was already punishing themselves? Lila had been right. He needed to know when to stop. But Holly and Marianne? They hadn't shown real remorse. They'd been defensive, dismissive, concerned only with protecting themselves. They still needed to face consequences. When he got home, Lila was waiting with coffee and concern. How was it? Complicated, he said, and told her everything. So Allison gets a pass? Allison's already suffering and trying to change. The other two? They're still the same people who hurt me. They just hide it better now. So what's next? Tristan pulled out his laptop. Next, I make sure Holly and Marianne face real accountability. Chapter 8, The Reckoning. Over the next 3 weeks, Tristan executed his plan with the precision of a structural engineer calculating load-bearing points. For Holly Farrell, he contacted 3 former clients of the Farrell law firm whose cases she'd mishandled. He didn't lie or embellish. He simply provided them with information about the Bar Association investigation and suggested they might want to file complaints if they'd been dissatisfied with their representation. All 3 filed. The Michigan State Bar Association opened a new investigation. This time, with multiple complaints and evidence of a pattern, they couldn't dismiss it quietly. Thomas Farrell tried to protect his daughter, but the weight of evidence was too much. Holly was suspended from practice for 18 months and required to complete ethics training. Her father quietly asked her to leave the firm. Tristan learned this through Ronaldo Cabrera, who had contacts at the Bar Association. Your information was helpful, Ronaldo said carefully. Those clients deserved justice. That's all I wanted. Justice. For Marianne, Tristan took a different approach. He reached out to the charity organization she'd been involved with, the one where money had gone missing. They'd never pursued charges because her husband's family had made restitution, but the incident had damaged their reputation. Tristan provided them with additional evidence he'd gathered, social media posts from around that time showing Marianne spending lavishly, designer bags, expensive trips, far beyond what her stated income would support. The timeline matched the missing funds period. The charity reopened their investigation. While they didn't press criminal charges, they did publish a report naming Marianne and banning her from any future involvement with their organization or its affiliates. The report went public. Marianne's social circle, already shaky, crumbled. Her husband, Eric Bass, filed for divorce 3 weeks later. Tristan felt something. Not quite satisfaction. More like resolution. Meanwhile, Allison Burke had kept her promise. She sent him a detailed account of that night and the years leading up to it. She reached out to Savannah with an apology. She was trying. Tristan decided to help her. Anonymously, through Wade's connections, he arranged for her to get an interview at a reputable social services agency. She'd have to earn the job, but at least she'd have the opportunity. Savannah had been quiet through all this. They'd signed divorce papers through their attorneys, and Madeline Henry had ensured everything was clean and final. Savannah hadn't contested anything, had asked for nothing. But she called him one evening, 3 weeks after Holly's suspension and Marianne's public shaming. "Did you do this?" she asked without preamble. "Did I do what?" "Destroy Holly and Marianne." Everyone's saying, there are rumors that someone provided information to the Bar Association, to the charity. "Was it you?" Tristan considered lying. But what was the point? "I provided accurate information to relevant parties. What they did with it was their choice." "Tristan, they hurt people, Savannah. For years. Me, others. Someone needed to hold them accountable. By ruining their lives? By giving them consequences they should have faced long ago. There's a difference." She was quiet for a long moment. "Allison called me. She apologized for everything. She seems genuine." "She is. That's why I didn't touch her situation." "So you're picking and choosing who to punish?" "I'm responding proportionally to their actions and their remorse." Holly and Marianne showed none. "Allison did. It's not complicated." "What about me?" Her voice was small. "Why didn't you destroy me too? You apologized. You showed remorse. You're trying to change. That bought you a clean divorce and nothing more. I don't deserve even that." "No, you don't. But I'm not doing this to be cruel. I'm doing it to make sure justice happens. You got yours in losing your life of privilege and your toxic friends." Holly and Marianne needed more. Another long silence. Then, "Thank you. For letting me try to be better." "Don't thank me. Just actually be better. For yourself, not for me." "I will. Goodbye, Tristan." "Goodbye, Savannah." He hung up and felt lighter than he had in weeks. That night, Lila asked him how he felt. "Complete," he said. "Like a chapter is finally closed. No regrets. Some. I wish I'd left 5 years ago without the trauma. But I can't change that. I can only control what happens now." "And what happens now?" He pulled her close. "Now we live our lives. The divorce is final. The people who hurt me have faced consequences. I'm free. Just like that. Just like that." But it wasn't quite over. 2 months later, Tristan received a letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual handwritten letter, forwarded through his attorney. It was from Thomas Farrell, Holly's father. "Mr. Barton, I understand you were instrumental in my daughter's suspension from the bar. I want you to know that she's devastated, and our family is suffering because of your vendetta. I also want you to know that I've looked into your actions, and I believe some of your methods were questionable at best. If you continue to pursue my daughter or interfere with her life, I will have no choice but to take legal action. I hope you can find it in yourself to let this go. My daughter made mistakes, but she doesn't deserve to have her career destroyed by someone with a personal grudge. Sincerely, Thomas Farrell, ESQ." Tristan read it twice. Then he called Madeline Henry. "He's bluffing," she said after reviewing the letter. "You didn't do anything illegal. You provided truthful information to appropriate parties. That's protected. So I can ignore this." I'd respond, briefly and professionally. "Make it clear you're not intimidated, but have no intention of further action. Close the loop." Tristan wrote back, "Mr. Farrell, I provided accurate information about your daughter's professional conduct to the State Bar Association and to former clients who deserve to know. At no point did I lie, fabricate evidence, or act illegally. Your daughter's suspension is the result of her own actions, not my vendetta. If she had conducted herself ethically, none of this would have happened. I have no intention of taking further action. My business with your daughter is concluded. I suggest you focus on helping her learn from this rather than threatening those who held her accountable. Sincerely, Tristan Barton." He never heard from Thomas Farrell again. Life settled into a new normal. Tristan's career continued to flourish. He and Lila got married in a small ceremony in the mountains, with Wade as his best man and a handful of close friends in attendance. No drama, no toxic friends, just people who genuinely cared about them. Savannah sent a card, just a card, with a simple message: "Congratulations. You deserve every happiness." He appreciated the gesture. 1 year after his confrontation with Savannah at the coffee shop, Tristan was working on a new project, a pedestrian bridge over a scenic river gorge. It was beautiful work, challenging engineering combined with aesthetic design. Wade joined him on site one afternoon, bringing coffee. "You seem good," Wade observed. "Better than I've seen you in years." "I am good. Great, actually. No regrets about how you handled the Savannah situation?" Tristan considered the question. "Some. I wish I'd been the bigger person, just let it all go. But I'm also human. They hurt me, and I wanted them to face consequences. I don't think that makes me a bad person. It doesn't. It makes you human, like you said. And honestly, I think you handled it well. You didn't destroy Savannah or Allison when you could have. You focused on the real perpetrators. Holly and Marianne. Right? They were the poison in that friend group. And now they're facing the consequences of their actions. That's not revenge. That's justice." Tristan nodded. "I can live with that." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the construction crew work on the bridge foundation, building something solid, something that would last. That's what Tristan had done with his life. Torn down the rotten structure of his old life and built something new, something solid, something that could weather storms. He'd earned his peace, and he'd make damn sure he kept it. Chapter 9. The New Horizon. 3 years after the divorce was finalized, Tristan Barton stood on the completed pedestrian bridge he designed, watching the sunset paint the Blue Ridge Mountains in shades of amber and rose. The bridge had won an engineering award, and his name was on a plaque at the entrance. Lead engineer, Tristan Barton, P. His father would have been proud. Lila stood beside him, 7 months pregnant with their daughter. They'd decided to name her Eleanor, after Tristan's mother. "This is beautiful," Lila said, her hand resting on her belly. "You built something amazing." "We built something amazing," he corrected, pulling her close. "This bridge, this life, all of it." Life had continued to improve. Lawson and Associates had made him a partner. His reputation in the engineering community had grown. He'd published papers, spoken at conferences, become someone whose opinion mattered. But more importantly, he'd become someone he respected. The revenge he'd taken against Holly and Marianne felt distant now, like something from another lifetime. He didn't think about it often. When he did, he felt neutral, neither proud nor ashamed. It had been necessary at the time, a way to close a wound that had been festering for 5 years. He'd heard through the grapevine that Holly had eventually completed her ethics training and found work at a small firm in a different state. She was apparently doing better, humbled by the experience. He hoped that was true. Marianne had remarried, to a different man this time. She deleted all her social media and lived quietly. Also better, he hoped. Allison had gotten her degree in social work and was working with at-risk youth. She'd sent him a thank you email a year ago, saying that his decision to help her had changed her life. He'd appreciated that. And Savannah. He'd heard she'd moved to Chicago, started her own small PR firm. She was apparently doing well, focused on her work rather than her social life. Someone had told him she'd written a blog post about toxic friendships and personal growth that had gone semi-viral. He hadn't read it. He didn't need to. Her chapter in his life was truly closed now. "Hey," Lila said, pulling him from his thoughts. "Where'd you go?" "Just thinking about how far we've come. From that coffee shop meeting to here? From that wedding venue to here." She squeezed his hand. "That was the worst thing that ever happened to you. And the best thing." "How do you figure?" "Because it forced you to become who you were always meant to be. Strong, confident, unwilling to accept mistreatment. That man who was abandoned 5 years ago, he wouldn't have designed this bridge. He wouldn't have built this life. He was too busy trying to make himself smaller to fit into someone else's world." Tristan considered that. She was right. The abandonment, as cruel and traumatic as it had been, had catalyzed his transformation. It had shown him what he wouldn't tolerate and forced him to find his own strength. "I'm glad I left," he said. "I'm glad I didn't look back." "Me too. Because if you had, we never would have met." They walked back across the bridge as twilight settled over the mountains. Tristan's phone buzzed, a text from Wade. "Dinner at our place tomorrow? Bring Lila and that beautiful bridge-building brain of yours. We're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" Tristan texted back. "Life. Do we need more reason than that?" Tristan smiled and confirmed they'd be there. That night, lying in bed with Lila asleep beside him, he thought about the past 8 years. The bad marriage, the abandonment, the disappearance, the rebuilding, the revenge, the resolution. It felt like multiple lifetimes compressed into less than a decade. He thought about the 127 voicemails Savannah had left, He'd never listened to them. Alba had told him they existed, but he'd never felt the need to hear Savannah's desperate messages. They couldn't change what had happened, couldn't undo the damage. But he was curious now, in a distant way. Not curious enough to track them down. The phone they'd been left on was long gone. But curious about what she'd said, how she'd processed his disappearance. Then he decided it didn't matter. Those voicemails belonged to a different Tristan, a different Savannah, a different life. This was his life now. A home he loved, a wife who respected him, a daughter on the way, work that challenged and fulfilled him, friends who had his back. He'd built it from nothing, from the ashes of his worst moment. And it was solid, structurally sound, built to last. A few weeks later, Tristan received an unexpected email. It was from Cody McCoy, the man who'd married Jessica at that fateful wedding 5 years ago. Tristan, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Jessica's husband. We got married at the venue where your wife, ex-wife now, and her friends left you. Jessica has always felt terrible about what happened that night. She's been trying to find you for years to apologize, but you were impossible to track down until recently, when someone mentioned you'd resurfaced. Anyway, we're hosting a 5-year vow renewal ceremony. Apparently that's a thing, and we wanted to invite you and your partner. We'd love to show you that wedding venues can be places of celebration, not abandonment. No pressure, just an offer. We owe you an apology, and we'd like to give it in person. Best, Cody. Tristan showed the email to Lila. Are you going to go? She asked. I don't know. It seems weird, random, or maybe it's closure. A chance to rewrite that memory. He thought about it. Then he replied, Cody, I remember you. You were kind when you didn't have to be. Thank you for the invitation. I'll talk to my wife. Yes, I remarried. And let you know. We appreciate the thought. Best, Tristan. 2 weeks later, Tristan and Lila made the drive to Ohio. The venue looked the same. The barn, the white lights, the sprawling property. But this time, Tristan wasn't arriving as a prop in someone else's drama. He was arriving as himself, on his own terms. Jessica and Cody greeted them warmly. Jessica hugged Tristan, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry for what happened here, she said. Marianne is my cousin, and I should have said something that night. Should have stopped them. Should have done more than just feel bad about it. It's not your fault, Tristan said genuinely. You didn't know them well. You were focused on your own wedding. I don't blame you. Still, I'm glad you're okay. More than okay, it looks like. She smiled at Lila, whose pregnancy was now quite visible. The ceremony was beautiful. Jessica and Cody renewed their vows, spoke about 5 years of marriage, of growth and partnership. Tristan found himself genuinely moved. Afterward, at the reception, Cody pulled him aside. Can I ask you something? Sure. What did you do? After they left you that night? Tristan told him. The walk to the hotel, the decision to disappear, the rebuilding. He didn't mention the revenge. That wasn't relevant to this moment. Cody whistled low. That's incredible. Terrifying, but incredible. Most people would have just gone home. Going home would have killed me. Slowly, but surely. I had to leave. And now I'm happy. Genuinely happy. Good. You deserve it. And hey, I know this is weird, but thank you for coming. Jessica's been torn up about that night for years. This helps her let it go. We all need to let things go, Tristan said. That's how we move forward. As the evening wound down, Tristan and Lila stood in the exact spot where he'd been abandoned 5 years ago. The September air was cool, fireflies blinking in the darkness. How do you feel? Lila asked. Healed, Tristan said. Completely healed. Good. Because we have a life to get back to. A daughter to prepare for. A bridge to admire. He laughed. You know, I think I'm going to design another bridge. A bigger one. Something that will outlast me. What will you call it? The Phoenix Bridge. Rising from ashes. Subtle. I'm an engineer, not a poet. They drove home that night, the Ohio wedding venue disappearing in the rearview mirror. This time, Tristan wasn't running. He was simply leaving behind a place that no longer had power over him. 6 weeks later, Eleanor Barton was born at 3:47 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. She had Tristan's dark hair and Lila's bright eyes. When the nurse placed her in his arms, Tristan felt something shift in his chest, a final piece of healing falling into place. Hello, Eleanor, he whispered. I'm your dad, and I promise I'm going to teach you to stand up for yourself, to never let anyone make you feel small, to build things that last. Lila reached over and touched his hand. She's lucky to have you. "We're all lucky," Tristan said. "We're all so damn lucky." And as he held his daughter, surrounded by the family he'd built, in the life he'd created from nothing, Tristan Barton finally let go of the last remnants of anger. The wedding venue, the abandonment, the years of mistreatment, they were part of his story, but they no longer defined him. He'd been left behind once, but he'd found his way to something better, something real, something that would last. He'd won, not through revenge or destruction, but through the simple act of refusing to be destroyed, through building instead of breaking, through choosing peace over bitterness. The victory felt earned, and sweet, and final. Epilogue. 5 more years passed. Eleanor was 5 years old, curious and bold, already showing an interest in how things worked. Tristan taught her about bridges, about foundations, about building things that would stand the test of time. The Phoenix Bridge was completed, a stunning suspension bridge that connected 2 communities and won international awards. Tristan's name was cemented in engineering circles as someone who combined technical brilliance with artistic vision. Lila finished her environmental science degree and started working for a conservation nonprofit. They bought a bigger house, adopted a dog, lived the kind of ordinary, extraordinary life that felt like a miracle after everything Tristan had survived. One day, while cleaning out old files, Tristan found the dossier Alba Rasmussen had created 10 years ago. The information about Savannah, Holly, Marianne, and Allison. He read through it one last time, then fed it into the shredder. He didn't need it anymore. Didn't need the reminders, or the ammunition, or the proof of what had been done to him. He had Eleanor, Lila, Wade, his work, his life. He had everything that mattered. That evening, tucking Eleanor into bed, she asked him, "Daddy, what's the strongest thing you ever built?" He thought about the bridges, the buildings, the structures that bore his name. Then he looked at his daughter and said, "This family, this life. It wasn't easy, and sometimes I had to tear down old things to build new ones. But it's the strongest thing I've ever created. Stronger than the Phoenix Bridge? Much stronger. The Phoenix Bridge will last 100 years, maybe more. But this family? This will last forever. Because you'll remember it, and teach your kids about it, and it'll keep going." She thought about that seriously. "I'm glad you built us, Daddy." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." After Eleanor fell asleep, Tristan joined Lila on their back porch. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the mountains darken against the evening sky. "You're quiet," Lila observed. "Just thinking about the past. About how different things could have been." "Regrets?" "No. The opposite. Gratitude. If Savannah and her friends hadn't been so cruel, I might have stayed in that life forever. Might never have found the courage to leave. Might never have found you. So in a way, you should thank them?" Tristan laughed. "I wouldn't go that far. But I'm at peace with what happened. All of it. The bad and the good. The revenge and the resolution. It made me who I am." "And who are you, Tristan Barton?" He pulled her close. "A man who knows his worth. Who builds things that last. Who loves his family and stands up for what's right. Who learned the hard way that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away and start over. And the strongest thing?" "The strongest thing," he said, "is learning when to fight and when to let go. When to seek justice and when to choose peace. I fought when I needed to. Let go when I needed to. And found peace in the end." "Sounds like a good life." "It's a great life," Tristan said. "Hard-earned, but great." They sat together as darkness fell, 2 people who'd found each other in the aftermath of trauma and built something beautiful. The mountains stood silent and ancient around them, witnesses to the slow, steady work of healing and growth. Inside, Eleanor slept peacefully, dreaming whatever 5-year-olds dream. And Tristan Barton, once abandoned and broken, now whole and strong, smiled into the night. He'd come home, not to the place he'd left, but to the place he'd built. And it was perfect. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.